Welcome to our fifth lecture on web development with Python and web2py. So last week we created the notifier application. So when we click in the notifier application, if we are logged in, we get redirected to a list of tasks, and our application handles tasks. We can assign a new task to a user. So task has a title, a description is assigned to a particular user, and there's a deadline. And we can also click on a task, and we can see a description of the task, the current status. We can edit it if we created or if it's assigned to us, and we can also see comments about the task. And here we can post a new comment, like test. So what we want to do today is how we can take the code to post comments and generalize it and turn it to a plugin that can be added to other applications. So other applications can display records and allow users to comment about those records. So in order to do that, we go back to the site page and we edit our notifier application, and we see what are the main ingredients of the comments. So let's see what we did last time. Well, we had a table post that stores a comment, and it refers to a particular task, and it has a body, which is the content of the comment, and as a signature, which refers to the user who created the comment and when the comment was created. And if we look in this file, there's really nothing else that refers to comments. There's only that table. And there are functions to send emails that we've been using. Let's also look at default PY. So let's see where we use this table post, and we use it in view task. So when we view a task, we retrieve the task and we create a form to post a comment, and we create a list, we obtain a list of previous posts, so previous comments. And if a new comment is posted and we accept it, then we handle it by sending an email to the other people who have access to this task. So if the person posting the comment is the person the task is assigned to, we send an email to the person who created the task, and vice versa. Also, if we look at the view for view task, we find that we have some more logic here to display the posts and to add a new comment. So here we see that we have the form inserted. In particular, we insert the form using a custom form. So we insert only the widget body and the submit button between begin and end. So we don't have the additional structure comes with forms like the tables. So what we want to do is we want to turn this into a plugin. So how do we do that? Let's go to the edit page. So a plugin is just a subset of an application that has to follow certain rules. One of the rules is that a plugin model is called plugin underscore something. A plugin controller is also called plugin underscore something. And plugin views are folders called plugin underscore something. And a plugin underscore something, when something is the same, gets identified as a single plugin. So let's just try to do that. Let's create a new model called plugin comments. There, so we've created it. And it doesn't show it here. It doesn't show it because it recognizes it as a plugin. And here is where it shows it. So I can click on this and I can see that my application has a plugin comments. Now let me go back to this previous page and let me create a controller to handle the comments. So I call it plugin comments. Same thing, it does not show it there, but if I go on the plugin comments, I see now that this plugin has a model and there's a controller, which exposes index because if I look inside, by default it just has an example index function, hello from plugin comments. So if I click on index, I can see how the plugin is called. So the notifier application controller plugin comments / index. Similarly, I could have views, so I could make a view for that index. So I can go to the edit page and I can make a view for my plugin comments slash index.html, and again I go on the plugins and I see that my plugin has models, has controllers, and has views. Now, there is nothing special in the name, so the only special part is plugin underscore, and then you can choose any name you want. And files that have the same plugin name will be grouped together, and you'll be able to delete them or package them or install them into another application. So you package it by click on package, and you can go into an application. Let's go back to our notifier application, which is the one we're working on, and we can upload a plugin just by selecting a particular plugin. And let's see, downloads, and we can see if we have recent ones. Here we go. No. Plugin comments, open, and we would install it. Now we have already installed it. Okay, so what we need to do at this point is start moving logic from the b1py default py into the plugin. So let's move first of all this table, post. And I'm going to delete it from here. I'm going to check that it's not used anywhere else in this file. And no, it's not. Some additional spaces here. And now we can go into the plugin. So I can go into the plugin comments, and I'm going to move it here. Okay, this is the first thing we're going to do. Now let's check that the application still works. So how do we check that? We check it by calling the notifier default index, and we click on click bathroom, and we see that everything still works. Okay. Now what we need to do is we need to move some of the controller logic. Now that's a little bit more complicated. Let's look at default py. So the controller logic here is basically this part. So we have something that creates the form, processes the form, and redirects to another page. And actually it's not there, it's below. Yeah. It creates the comment, it processes it, and then it lists all the other comments. So somehow we need to take this out of here and we need to place it somewhere else. So how can we do that? Well, here it's a question of how do we want to design our application. So one option would be to select this part and just remove it from here. And we can go into the plugin comments and we can move it here and we can give it a name. Make comments. So what this needs, this will return both the form and the posts. So what this would take as argument, this would take, for example, well, at this point we can make it so it doesn't take anything, but then eventually we need to pass some information to it, like what happens when the form is accepted. So we do something here, and what we do is we call a function. So we call a certain callback. So let me pass a callback, and let me pass the callback with the form. And so now we need to pass that callback. So I can go to default py where I have deleted that logic so that we were inside view task. So what we do is we define that callback. So this was the logic inside the callback. It takes the form and will send the email. And now we call the plugin and we say, give me the form and give me the posts. And we call the function we just put into plugin comments, which is make comments. And we pass the callback. this is one way we can do it. Let's see if this works. Okay, so this still works, and we post a comment, test1, and this part still works as we expect it to work. So we have separated the logic to, which is application specific, what happens when we post a comment, to the logic that creates the form and lists all the posts. Well, we're still not completely done here. Let's look at the views. If we look at the view of view task, there is logic here to insert the posts and the form to post new comments into the view task page. So this is kind of its own view, and it would be nice to be able to take it and separate it. So we can do it by simply taking it out of here and putting it into a new view that we need to create, or we may have created, but we have actually a plugin comments index.html which we could use, so we could put it in here. So what we would be doing is we would go into the view task and we would include plugin comments index.html. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, so this is still working. Let's see what we have so far. It's still not a really good plugin. We still need to do lots of work to make it better. So we have a model which defines our table and defines a function that makes the form and the post, and we have a view that takes the posts and the form and displays it along with the proper HTML, and JavaScript that we have in here. Also, we have simplified the controller default, because the controller default, when it needs to display the comments, it will just call this function, which is defined by the plugin, and will pass its own callback. So what happens when a comment is posted, like an email is sent, and what the plugin will do will create form and posts, which is passed to the view, and the view includes the view of plugin comments. Okay, can we go one step further and do this even better? Well, yes, we can. What we could do is we could, for example, load the content of the comments and the form itself using an Ajax form. So how would we do that? Well, let's try first. Let's try an example. Let's edit the controller for this plugin. So this is the controller for the plugin, which just says hello from plugin comments py. So we can try it. We can call it plugin comments index. We have an error. Let's see why we have an error there. Well, we have an error because this has its own view. So we want to just return the string here. Okay, so this just says hello from plugin comments py. So this just returns a string like any other action. So now we can take the view of view task HTML, and what we can do is we can insert here a load function where we load the plugin comments index, and we load it using Ajax equal true. So let's see what happens if we do this. If we just now go to the default index page, what happens, and we go to the view task. Okay, now this part is being loaded via Ajax. We can actually check that. Let's go to the JavaScript console and let's go to network and let's reload this page. And what we see is that here, the plugin comments is being loaded via Ajax. And we get a 200 OK and the content is here. So what we can think of doing is we can think of creating an action into the controllers plugin that generates the list of items that we want. So let's do the following. Let's take the logic that generates the form and the posts and let's move them into the controller of the plugin. So let's move it here. And so we generate the form and the posts and we return them. Now this is a regular action, so we return a dictionary that contains the form and the posts. And we have this callback here. Let me comment it for a second and then we see later what we're going to do with it. Also, let me edit controllers default, and controllers default generate codes make comments, which doesn't exist anymore, so I'm going to comment that as well. So this callback function right now is not used, okay? We need to figure out how to use it. So if we now call the controller plugin comments index, what we get is we just get HTML for the comments and for the form. Okay, let's review this once more. So this is the action in the controller plugin comments, and this is the view for the action index of plugin comments. Okay, so this is exactly the same code we had to start with. We just moved it into the plugin. So now, if I look at the view of task HTML, what it does, it loads this plugin comments / index as Ajax. Well, let's try that. Let me reload this part. There, I get the comments. Let's see if this works. So I submit. Well, this still works. But now, the comments are reloaded via Ajax. The page is not reloaded. And we can try that. We can look at the JavaScript console. We can look at the network. We can post a comment. And we can see what happens. And what we see is that there is an Ajax post. Okay? So this is almost working the way we want it. One issue we need to fix is the logic for deleting comments, because right now it doesn't quite work. So let's look at that. Let's view the JavaScript console and let's click on this button and see what happens. What happens is that our plugin is making a Ajax call to a plugin comments delete post, but that doesn't exist. It doesn't exist because the delete comments was in default PY, not in the plugin comments PY. So we need to move it. So we're going to the controller plugin comments, and here we need the delete post, and everything else can stay. So let's see if this works now. So now it exists, so now I should be able to call it. And well, I still get an internal error, so let's see what internal error we get if we call this. And so we get a ticket, which we can click on. So the comment is that the error is that me is not defined. And we use it here, so this should be auth user ID, and we must require that we have a user. So let's try this again. Okay, so the post is now deleted. Okay, so you should be able to delete more posts. Let me leave only the last one. There we go. So this is working. So apart for the callback, our plugin is working. It's still not written the way a plugin should be written, but it works. So let's see again what comprises this particular plugin. This plugin is comprised again of two files: the models, which defines our table that we need, and it comprises of a controller, which is an index and a delete, and is comprised of a view that is the view for index and only creates the HTML for the plugin, not the outer shell. So how do we use it? Well, we use it in a single line, and the only line where we use it is in the view, and we load the plugin comments here. This is the only reference to the plugin from the application itself. So we have removed all the logic that belongs to the plugin into the plugin, and the only part of the application that references the plugin is this one line. What we have not done yet is that the plugin itself references the application. Let's see what we mean by that. If I go into the models of the plugin is aware of the fact that there is a table called task and is referencing that. So the plugin only works as long as there is a task to reference. We want this plugin to be more general purpose. So how do we make it more general purpose? Well, we make it reference any table, and this would be a string, and we make it reference a particular record of that table. Let's call it table name here. So now the table post can reference any other table by its record ID. So this is not a reference which is enforced at the database level, but it will allow us to use records in this particular table to be comments for any other record of any other table. Except that in order to make it more general, we need to be able to reference the other object. So how do we do that? Well, when we use the plugin comments, we are going to need to specify that this is comments about the task, and in particular this is a comment about the task ID. So we need to pass this information. And as we pass it here, then we need to receive it. So we need to receive it in the controller for the plugin. So now this plugin is going to take a table name, which is the request args0, and is going to take a record ID, which is the record we are commenting about, which is a request args1 cast integer, and now we need to set the defaults. So we need to set the database post table table name defaults to this table name. This is what we are commenting about, and the post record ID also defaults about this record ID. And when we select all posts, we also need to be very explicit that our posts are about table name equal this table name. We want equal here, and our post record ID is about this record ID. And similarly, when we delete it, we need similar. We may need similar conditions, or we may not. We are assuming that if we have created, we can delete it, so it doesn't really matter which table this comment is referencing. So let's see if that works. Okay, so we got an error, and let's check the error. Table is not attribute task, so somewhere we have db post task default task ID. So let's see where we have that. We have that in the notifier controller default. Yes, we left this logic here, which doesn't really belong there. Okay, so all the previous comments are gone because now we changed the structure of the table, so they're gone. So let's try again. Test 1, test 2. Well, this still may not work exactly the way we want, but let's see. Model for this table, we have not specified that these things are not writable. So because we're not specified that they are not writable, and we have a custom form, their values are not submitted, and the controller for the plugin thinks that they have none values. Let's try once more. Test 5. There we go. Test 6. There we go. And we should be able to delete them and reload, and it's there. Going back to our controller for the plugin, what we have is, again, we have index, which retrieves information about which table these comments are about, which record of that table these comments are about, sets the default and creates the form to post a new comment, lists all existing comments, returns, gets displayed by its own views, and everything is working as we want. And now we have a mechanism to load an action from the plugin and pass parameters in which we're saying we want to be able to comment about the record of the table task which corresponds to this task ID. And this is fine. We still have some problems here. One problem is how we deal with authorization. So what should be the conditions to allow the index action of the plugin to actually display the comments and display the form to post new comments? We could do something like auth user auth requires login, or we could have something requires membership of a certain group. The point is, when we create the plugin, we don't know, because it's the application that uses the plugin that should decide if somebody is allowed to view these comments and is allowed to post comments. So what we're going to do is we're going to delegate authentication to the controller or the view that actually loads the plugin. So we're going to require a signature. This is what we're going to do. And let's see how that works. So you require a signature. This action can only be loaded if you have the signature, and the signature gets generated by saying user signature equal true. So now we can look at the JavaScript console, and we can again look at the network, and we can reload this part, and we can see that the URL which is being called here. So the process of signing a AJAX callback involves actually two steps. The first step is here, where we load an action of a plugin. We pass arguments to that action. We do it through AJAX, and we declare that the URL for this AJAX callback must be digitally signed, which means that when the URL is generated, we hash it using UUID code assigned to this particular session, and we attach the hash to the query string. The second part is performed inside the plugin here, and it's the validation. So we must require a valid signature, otherwise this cannot be displayed, cannot be executed. So that we have two more things that we need to do. One is we need to change the name of this table, because the name post is, first of all, it's too generic, but also it may conflict with other tables that we may have created in the host application. So a plugin should follow a certain naming convention. Let's do that. And the easiest way to do it is to do it from the shell at this point, because we need to make substitutions. So let's edit the models plugin comments, and let's change this post into plugin comment post. Okay, so everywhere we have post, we're going to replace it with plugin comments post. So we do that into the controllers plugin comments, and everywhere we have post, we're going to replace it with plugin comments post. So we have it here, 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 here. Happens in a few places. Actually, we have in so many places that it may be worth to just say post is DB plugin comments post, and then replace it everywhere with simply post. Now the code is much shorter and more readable. And in some places we should probably break it and go to the next line. Something like this. So now the code is much shorter. Let's see if we have something in the view of plugin comments index. We have post here, but this is the looping variable, so we actually don't reference the post table in here. Let's see if that works. Okay, so well, we missed something. What we're missing is that we've defined the table, so the new table contains nothing. We start again. Okay, so this works. We can delete it, and we can look at them again. So this part works. Something else we may want to do is, when we define a table or we have other logic in the plugin, we may create local variables here and so on. We may want to avoid polluting the namespace, so we may decide to create a function like unnamed, like underscore, and just call that function. We may decide to do that. So in that way, everything which is done in this model stays isolated from the rest of the namespace. We may want to perform other configuration options. We may want to be able to specify the name of the database. We may want to actually specify the name of the table. So that's the next thing we need to do. We need to find a way to pass parameters to the plugin. Now, web2py provides a standard mechanism for passing parameters to the plugins. So let's look into the models DBPY. And what we see is that from Glue Tools we import various things. One is auth, which we instantiate, and then we call the method define tables, and does all the authentication logic for us. There are other objects we import and we also instantiate. One of them is plugin manager, which we instantiate as plugins. So if you want to customize a plugin, we just say plugins dot the name of the plugin, so in this case comments, dot, and you can put anything you want in it. For example, we want to pass DB as the database to this plugin. So now our plugin would not use just DB, but would use plugin comments DB. So you would use plugin comments DB. There. So now we can pass arbitrary databases to this plugin. We would have to do the same in the controllers plugin comments. And let's see where we have DB. This is the only place where we have it, and we also have it in here. So Well, we can retrieve it from the plugin comments DB, and now we have it. Let's see that we have not broken anything, so the parameter is passed properly. Well, the other things we may need to pass. So if we go into the control default with the callback. So with this callback, that given a form would send an email. So what we want to do is we want somehow to pass this callback function to the plugin. So we need to tell the plugin that when we post a new comment about a task, this particular function needs to be called. Now, we cannot do this in the controller default because there is no way we can pass a function from one controller to another controller. But we can pass functions from a model to a controller, and this function must be passed to the controller of the plugin. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this function, we're going to take it out of here, and we're going to go into the models db1py, and we're going to go somewhere in this function, and we're going to here. Okay, so this is the callback that we want. So this is callback on comment. So it takes a form, and what it does, it sends the email. Now for this to work, it needs to know which task we are talking about. And that's a little bit of a problem at this point because we don't know exactly which task we're talking about. So we need to figure out which task this is. Okay? So we know that we're posting a comment about a task, and we know that the task ID is in DB default DB plugin comments post record ID default. That's what it is, right? So in the table plugin comments post, we have a record ID which is going to default to the task we're commenting about. So let me just retrieve this as task ID, and let me set it. Okay, so now if we want to call this function from inside the plugin, well, we're not told the plugin that this is what we want to do yet, but if we want to do that, we can now call it passing the form, and the function would retrieve the plugin comments post record ID default, will retrieve the task, and will be able to send the email. Now let's first try it, and then we'll register it in the proper way. So now let's go into the controller for the plugin, and if the form is accepted, now we can call this callback that we have. So let's see if that works now. So we see that we take the post record ID default, we set it to the record ID. If the form is accepted, we call back on comment, and we retrieve this information from inside the function, which is what we just called it. So let's check if this works. Okay, so we're getting an error, so let's see what the error is. The tasks as no attribute assigned to. So we're getting none when we do this. Let's make sure that we're setting it properly in here. So we are setting it in here. So the post record ID default is record ID. Now we call the function. this is task ID, right? Okay. Task ID, task ID. Try again. Task 6. And me is undefined, which is fine. So we have me in here, and me is supposed to be, we can just leave it as me and say that me is auth user ID. Okay, let's try again. Task 7. Okay, this got posted. Okay, now somehow we need to register this callback. We don't want to hard code it so that here we specify the name. This is supposed to be a plugin, so we should be able to customize it. And what we did before was to use this object, which is a global object. And this global object contains parameters we want to pass to plugins. So we say plugins.comments, we set parameters about comments. Plugin.comments.db, we set, for example, the DB. Now we can pass anything we want here. Okay, we can see plugin comments A equal B. Okay, we can pass anything we want. So in particular, we can register like callbacks. And we can say, okay, here's where we're going to put all the callbacks for the different types of tables we are commenting about. So now this is a dictionary. So now what we can do is we can register a callbacks that for table task is going to call this function. Best way to do it is this one. Here we go. So now we have plugin comments callbacks that for table task. So when we comment on a task, we want to call this function. Now let's edit the plugin again, and let's change this line. So if the form is accepted and plugins comments callbacks, so there are callbacks, and if this particular table name is in the plugin comments callbacks, so if we have a callback for this table, what we do is we take the plugin comments callback for this table name and we call the form. Let's see if this works. Test 9. There we go, it works. Let's see if the email is being sent. Well, the email may be delayed. So with the policy that we set last time, and the email policy was deferred, let's do real time. That's 10, and the email is sent. Okay, so this was complicated. This is as complicated as it gets. There are lots of pieces that we're using here to build this particular plugin. But let's review everything we have. Okay, let's review it once more. And let's start from here. We have created a plugin which is called plugin comments. And we followed a number of conventions in order to make the plugin work and be generic and be portable. So let's first see how we use the plugin. And we designed the plugin so that this would be the way we use it. So first thing we do is in the models, we create a plugins object. This is already done by web2py in the scaffolding application, which is a plugin manager. And this allows us to configure plugins. So you just need to know the names. So I want to configure plugin comments. I want to pass a variable called DB and a variable called callbacks, which is like a dictionary. And then we go into web2py, and what we do is we create a function that, given a form, it retrieves a task ID and a task from the task ID and checks who this email should be sent to and send an email. So this callback, when it takes a comment form, it sends an email to a person who is supposed to be notified about this comment, and you can change the logic here depending on who you want to notify about the comment being posted. And now you say that the plugin comments callbacks associated to a task. So when we post a comment about a task, should call this function, should pass the form that contains the comment to this particular function. And now we are delegating everything to the comments. Also, let's look at the view for view a task. So when we're viewing a task, we want to be able to comment about it. So what we do is we say here, load the plugin comments action index, say that we want to comment about a task record, this record ID, load the plugin action via Ajax and sign it. And by sign it, you're saying that you're allowed to do that. This could be in if pass clause, so you can limit access at this level. So you can say if you have certain condition, then you load it, otherwise you don't load it. For example, if you're not logged in, don't load it, but link a button to log in to comment, something like that. The plugin could do that itself. And that's all you need to do in the application in order to use the plugin we have created. So now let's look at the plugin we have created. So the plugin has a model, and we can do this from the interface. We can go to plugins and we can see what's inside the plugin. The plugin has a model, a controller, and one view. So the model defines a table called plugin comments post using the database plugin comments DB that we have specified in the application that is using it. Each record knows which table the comment is about, which record of that table the comment is about, and what the comment is, and who made the comment. So this is what the plugin is defining. Also, there is a controller in this plugin that has two actions. One action displays the form to post a comment and lists all the comments. It retrieves the table name and the record ID the comments are about from the URL and requires that the URL be signed, otherwise it cannot be called. And if the form is accepted and there are plugin comments callback, look if we have a callback registered for this particular table. So when we try to comment on this particular table, look up for the callback and call it, pass the form so that the callback can see what is being submitted and decide what to do. In our case, it's just sending an email. There is another action which is called when we delete a comment, it's called delete comment. If it's post and we are logged in, and if we are the person who created the comment, then we can actually delete it. And then we have the view for this plugin. So this is the view for index. This is the one we wrote last week. We didn't change one line in this part of the code. Now that we are done, our plugin is ready and can be used in any other application. So all we need to do is we need to come here, look at plugin comments, and we need to package it, and we can apply to another application. And when we apply, again, the only thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we are configuring the plugin. So we need to set plugin comments DB. We need to set the callbacks. So in our case, this is where we do that. We set the callbacks, and we need to include the comments in the place where we want the comments to appear. So in this case, in this particular view. Let's now talk about deploying our applications. We're going to consider two different cases We're going to deploy on Python Anywhere, and we're going to deploy on Google App Engine. So deploying on Python Anywhere is probably the easiest option. So what we do is we go to pythonanywhere.com/try-web2py, and it asks us to choose a name for our application. So I'm going to choose text 846. Okay, give me my web2py. So what Python Anywhere does, it downloads the latest web2py, makes a clone of it, assigns you a random administrator password, and gives you access to the administrator password online. So here is our welcome application. Here's our admin application. This is our administrator password. Okay, so we go to admin. And we log in with the administrator password. And we may want to uninstall welcome. We may want to uninstall examples. We may want to install one of the applications we made. So let's take our notifier and pack it and go here and upload our notifier. You can rename it if you like. So we go to the location where we downloaded it. Here we go. Install. And our notifier is running on Python Anywhere, so we have to log in to access it. Here we go, with all our data and everything that was in the SQLite database. Now, when you use this interface, the try-web2py interface, this is a very new feature of Python Anywhere. Then you need to register for your application to persist. Otherwise, your application will be discarded after, I believe, 24 hours. We're now going to see how to deploy an application in the Google App Engine. So we look for it. I go to the Google App Engine page. We may need to sign up and sign in. First thing we do is we go to the admin console and we say create application, and we choose an application identifier. I'm going to say my web2py1. Okay, and we can check availability, and it's available, and application title, what users will see when they access the application. I'm going to choose the same for now. And I accept these terms, and I create the application. Okay, so the application is registered, so we need to remember my web2py1. Okay, then we go back to the Google App Engine developer site, and we download the things that we need. And there is one thing we need, is the SDK for Python. So there are different versions depending on the operating system. I have a Mac, so I'm going to get the version for Mac, which is the Google App Engine launcher. You download it, and then you install it. I have installed it already. So here we go. So next thing we need to do is we need to register a new web2py application. So we need this to point to a folder where we will be working. So I'm gonna work into this folder called IPD359. The application ID is the one that we registered. And what the App Engine Launcher tells us is that it will create a folder IPD359 / name of the application ID. Okay. Now we have to make a choice here, whether we use Python 2.7 or in this case it's asking for PHP, may ask for Python 2.5 for older versions. and which ports to use for the SDK. And it needs two ports because one will be the Google App Engine admin, which is not web2py admin, and the other port is the port where web2py will be running, so in this case 8080. So we create this, so that's done. Now we can look that this folder is being created. Now next thing we do is we copy everything we built so far from the web2py folder into my web2py 1, and we need to copy everything recursively. Second thing we do is we go under my web2py 1, and from examples we copy this file called app_examples.yaml in the my web2py 1 folder, and we rename it app.yaml. Okay, now we edit app.yaml, and we have to set some configuration in here. First thing is we don't want to use Python 2.5, we want to use Python 2.7, and we have to specify if we want to make it thread safe or not. Actually, web2py is thread safe, so we can say that it is. We keep going down to more configuration options, and if we use Python 2.7, which we do, we need to specify that this is the configuration script that Google App Engine should be using. Furthermore, if we go down, there is a lot of files that here are excluded, in the sense that web2py does not, Google App Engine will not deploy them to the cloud, and usually that's because you don't want them, because they may be large and contain a lot of stuff. For example, the main application, the examples applications, the welcome application may not be deployed. Also, notice that the contributed folders are not deployed, and some of the applications we have built use them. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to ignore them. I'm going to pretend that I want to deploy everything in the contributed folders. Okay, so this is done. There's one more file that we need to copy. So from handlers, gay handler, we need to copy it here. Start. Okay, it appears to be running. Welcome works. Let's check for some of the other applications that we built, like App3 works. That I did clone. I take a little bit to load. And the reason it's going to take some time to load is because it's using populate to create dummy data, and that's going to take a little bit of time. When we're running the Google App Engine, we're not using the SQLite database. We're using the Google App Engine database. In this case, we're using the SDK, but it's still using a local database, which is not the SQLite one. Here we go. So it's running.